way we were going to go a week without talking to our Matt George of the Locked On Kings podcast and ABC 10 after the Kings win a couple of home games in a row. Back into the 6th spot in the Western Conference playoff race. Matt, man, I don't even know where to begin. Kings win 2 in a row. Were you surprised? You be honest with us. Were you surprised that the Kings took both games against the Bucks and the Lakers the way that they did this week?
As much as the Kings fan in me wants to go, absolutely not, because when they play up to the level of their competition. Yeah, winning back-to-back games against the Milwaukee Bucks and the Los Angeles Lakers. Like, I expected the Kings to beat the Lakers. I'm not going to lie to you, because that team is sorry, and the Kings own that team.
They are sorry.
But but the Milwaukee Bucks win, I thought, was pretty, not just getting the win, but specifically how they got that win, I thought was pretty significant. We've seen many times over these 2 seasons, D'Lo, the Kings respond to bad losses, and their loss to, what was the game before that? Houston. It wasn't a terrible loss necessarily. It was disappointing, but it wasn't a terrible loss compared to some of the ones we've seen. But we've seen Sacramento respond, but it's specifically how they responded, and then to carry that from one night to the next, where the second night of a back-to-back wasn't even discussed once. Like, it wasn't even brought up. There was no part of how the Sacramento Kings played against the Los Angeles Lakers that even remotely made you think about any, not just in the excuse, but pointing out that it's the second night of a back-to-back. It didn't matter. It was irrelevant, because the Sacramento Kings showed up and decided to play the way that they knew they were capable of playing, the way that Mike Brown has challenged them to play, the way the locker room is challenging themselves to play, regardless of the circumstances, home, away, opponent, regardless of the situation. The Kings showed up ready to go. And that, to me, was the surprising part, that they were able to do that 2 games in a row.
Yeah, I know we talk about the Houston game and how that went down. I still believe they've been playing good basketball for a while now, and that doesn't always result in a win. And even that Houston game, that was one of the few games as of late where they didn't shoot the ball very well. They didn't take advantage of opportunities early in that game to extend their lead. But in general, I think the Kings have been playing good basketball as of late. And I know we focus on those 2 games, the last 2 games that they just played, but do you see it the same way? Do you think in general they've been playing well since around the All-Star break?
I do think they have been playing better, particularly on the offensive end. I mean, they've scored over 120 points, I think, like 4 or 5 times since the All-Star break. They've broken 130 like 2 or 3 times. So offensively, they're starting to kind of get back to where I expected them to be and where we know they're capable of being. Not necessarily every single night, but they've looked like a prolific offense again. That being said, there have been games and there have been stretches in games specifically. Like, what I was really frustrated about in that Houston loss was, once again, you went through this quarter where you scored 17 points in the third quarter. Like, to me, that's unacceptable for the Sacramento Kings team, regardless of what you're doing on the defensive end of the floor. I know shots aren't always going to be falling, but that is your strength. That is your identity. You can't have these extended lulls, because we talk about these big runs that the Kings consistently have found themselves on the wrong end of this year. And a lot of people want to point to the defense of, you aren't able to hold leads and you're not stopping a team from scoring 22 points over an 8-minute stretch. But offensively, you only scoring 4, 6, 8 points over that same stretch, to me, is even more concerning than the defense. I talked about that a lot and asked Mike Brown about it. And what we got over these last 2 games was kind of finally a blending of both. Better physicality and a better impact on the defensive end of the floor that translated to better offensive opportunities. And then the Kings getting back to a pillar of their offense, which is paint touches and spray threes. Mike has hit that hard over these 2 games, and the Kings have shot over 50% on spray threes in back-to-back games, which is one of the reasons why this Kings team not only won those games as comfortably, I guess is the right word, as they did, but also one of the reasons why in both those games the Kings were shooting over 40% from 3-point range. So there's a lot that we can get into in this. There's a lot that's happened, I feel like, over this week, from the Houston game through the back-to-back against the Bucks and the Lakers. But and I'm excited to see, like, kind of where the conversation goes necessarily. But there's a lot that's happened this week that I think
Stop it.
represents.
Oh, stop it. You're
What?
talking about one thing and one thing only. Go ahead. Let's talk about Keon Ellis.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I should have led. We should have just said, ladies and gentlemen, Matt George, Locked On Kings, ABC 10, Matt Keon Ellis.
Thank you. That was the intro that I was hoping for, because I think we're going to disagree a lot a bit. And I am captain of I am all in on start Keon Ellis the rest of the season. I'm all in, like completely all in on it. I think his impact is.
So why do you hate Kevin Herter so much? Let's start there.
Wow.
I'm glad. See, there's the best place to start, because
Mike
I've never
Brown
liked
George
Kevin
over here.
Never liked Kevin Herter. I think he's terrible. No, I appreciate what Kevin Herter does, and I think there's you were talking with Kyle Madsen about this, and one of the things that I disagree with is that like you lose Kevin Herter if you make this decision, or you potentially lose Kevin Herter, or you can't go back if you make a decision like this to try. We have never seen Keon Ellis start with the Sacramento Kings when they were healthy. We have not seen it. Keon has been plugged in when the Kings have needed to plug him in, because either De'Aaron Fox was out, Keegan Murray was out, or recently Kevin Herter was out. We have not seen what could be the best that the Sacramento Kings have to offer, which is starting Keon Ellis at the 2 next to De'Aaron Fox for the tone that he helped set. That's the biggest deal to me. Kevin Herter is certainly the better shooter. He can't hold a candle to Keon Ellis defensively, no matter how hard he tries. That's just the reality of the situation. And Keon Ellis right now is knocking down shots. So, like, there's a big distinction to me. When Kevin Herter is knocking down threes, you can live with what he does on the defensive end of the floor. When Keon Ellis is knocking down threes, it's no contest who's the more impactful player for the Sacramento Kings right now. Plus, I think the writing's been on the wall all season long. I don't expect Kevin Herter to be a member of the Sacramento Kings next season. I expect Keon Ellis to be a member of the Kings next season. It's all about winning basketball games right now. And Keon Ellis, to me, gives you the absolute best chance to win basketball games because of what he is doing. Now, the 6-0 as a starter, that's fantastic. We all know there's a lot more that goes into that than just Keon Ellis being a starter, right? But the tone that he is setting, Mike Brown has talked a lot about how starting Keon Ellis takes some of the pressure off of De'Aaron Fox. So the Kings play the New York Knicks on Saturday night. Starting Keon Ellis, put him on Jalen Brunson. Look what Keon Ellis just did to Dame Lillard and D'Angelo Russell in back-to-back nights. Dame Lillard, 10 points. D'Angelo Russell, 6 points. For context, because I brought this up, here are the games for Dame leading into that 10-point performance in Sacramento. 41 points, 20 points, 28 points, 35 points, then 10 points. Dame was cooking, and Keon Ellis quieted him down. Then you have D'Angelo Russell, who had a 44-point game 2 games before playing the Sacramento Kings. D'Angelo Russell has played the Kings twice this month. In both those games, 10 points and 6 points. Those are his 2 lowest games of the month. Keon Ellis has had a major impact on that. Now, to be fair, Keon did not start in the first Laker game, but he did play a decent amount coming off the bench, and his assignment was guarding D'Angelo Russell. So Jalen Brunson's tearing it up right now. You start the game by throwing Keon Ellis, who's going to give you 110% out of the gate defensively, trying to lock down Jalen Brunson, take some of the pressure off of Fox, who doesn't have to worry about guarding Jalen Brunson for 30 minutes a night, help him set the tone. Maybe Jalen still scores. Maybe he doesn't. But what I'm seeing from Keon, and what I've seen from Keon consistently over the 6 games that he has started, is out of the gate, the Kings have played with a different level of defensive focus, defensive intensity that has allowed them to not fall behind early on and have to switch into that survival mode to scramble to get themselves back into games, or try and switch on the fly and suddenly wake up defensively in the middle of the second or third quarter instead of right out of the gate.
First of all, I don't have any problem with Keon Ellis starting. I don't have any problem with it. If that's what happens, like I said, I love the way he's played. He's earned it, and he's been effective. So I don't have any problem. But I'll give a couple of counters here. Number one, how many times have they started off slow?
The Kings?
Yeah.
They've started off slow a handful of times this season, especially defensively.
Okay, 66 games.
Yeah,
we're talking about 5 games when they started off slow. So it's a problem. The starting lineup is a problem.
Most recently, we're talking the Lakers game. That's probably the only one.
That's probably the only one in the last 10 to 20 games.
No, the starting lineup has been poor defensively all season long. And
but
Kevin
that's a different conversation.
But that's what I'm talking about here.
But that's not starting off slow. That means defensively they haven't played well. But hell, a lot of the issue, the main issue really with the Kings lately is they can't hold a lead. You got to get a lead to hold a lead, right?
Yes, we've also seen them blow 20-point leads at home consistently this season. We've seen them blow 20-point leads in record time this year because of those massive runs that they end up going on. So I get your point about overall starting slow. Like, this team can score. We know they can score. Mike Brown has been consistent with that all season long. I'm talking about when Keon Ellis is starting, the tone is set defensively from the jump better than any time Kevin Huerter is starting. And it unfortunately has to be an Ellis versus Huerter thing because that's the spot that's available. And it's not fair to put all the success on Keon and all the failure on Kevin. But our eyes tell us, the numbers tell us, Kevin is a walking target on the defensive end of the floor. It's not that he's lazy. It's not that he's not trying. He's not like LeBron James standing there watching Harrison Barnes get open threes the entire night. It's not what he's doing. Kevin Huerter's working. He's trying. He just cannot play defense. He can't. Like, we've seen it enough this season. He is not a good defender. He is incapable no matter how hard he has worked, and he's been doing that all season long. I give him all the credit for that. We see tangible evidence. The eyes tell us, the numbers tell us. When Keon Ellis starts, the Kings set a tone defensively. They ramp up the physicality. It hasn't just been over these two games. When they beat the freaking Oklahoma City Thunder on their home floor without De'Aaron Fox, it was because Keon Ellis also helped set the tone defensively in that game as well, to where, if I'm not mistaken, I think they held the Thunder to either under 100 points or just over 100 points in that game. So I'm talking about starting slow defensively, because we know this Kings team can light it up at any point in time offensively and go on these huge offensive bursts. But when Keon is playing, what I am seeing is a team that has picked it up on the defensive end of the floor, and I haven't been able to see them replicate that, certainly consistently, at any point this season when Keon is not starting or not playing.
I'm being a jerk right now, but they were down for most of the first quarter on Wednesday. So I don't know. Because it's about this fast start and everything. They were down 13-8. They were down most of the first quarter.
But can I go a step further? I'm not Will Z here. I'm just looking at box sheets. That's all I'm looking at right now. There seems to be, to Matt's point, it's only 6 games, and I've probably come across 4 of them. Mm-hmm. There seems to be a pretty significant difference in the points given up in the first quarter when Keon Ellis is starting versus when he's not.
So here's the other question about that, though. How many times has he started in place of Kevin Huerter?
I believe that was the first one.
We're saying it as if they're hunting Kevin Huerter.
But I think
it's his issue. Half the time he's in the game when Keon.
But you can separate those if you wanted to.
Separate what?
What the Kings are doing defensively in Kevin Huerter, like in terms of starting, you can separate that and say it's actually in. And I don't think Mike is making this move.
No, I don't think he is either.
But if you did, it's like, Kevin, this isn't about what you're not doing; it's about what Keon is doing.
That's perfectly.
And
fair.
that's how because Kevin, you look at these numbers with you, Keon, Domas, Harrison, Keegan out on the floor. This isn't about you, it's about him. And that's what we're focused on. And because you're right.
That's perfectly
to the best that I could find, that's the only time he started in place of Kevin Huerter. I also found it appears, just again, a non-Will Z search here. The one game that was a really rough start for Sacramento outside the Lakers one that we just referenced was the Denver game before the All-Star break that they won. And the score was like 60-61 or whatever that awful score was. It was a terrible game, but it was a really bad start for Sacramento that they clawed their way back into.
And Matt, just to clarify, reiterate, I love Keon Ellis.
Casey's really cranky today, and he is not here for your nonsense.
I love Keon Ellis. If he were to start, I think that'd be fine. We kind of all discussed the reasons why I don't think it'll happen, but it's nothing against Keon. It's more of like.
It's a hard move to make 65
you know what I mean?
games into the season.
With a team that's 11 games over 500.
But why is it a hard move to make now when Mike has tried to make this move with Chris Duarte at 2 separate times over the course of this season? Like,
Yeah,
Did he try to start Duarte the second time though?
yes.
It's debatable, but yeah, because remember Herter was coming off the injury,
Mhm.
and I think he came back on the bench,
Mhm.
and then it was okay. This is not what we're doing. But Matt, that was earlier. Like if you're Mike, in my opinion, and I'm not a coach,
Mhm.
you can't be searching right now. Like if you're searching, and this is the part Mike has acknowledged. I've got to keep him on the floor. I've got to find ways to make sure he's on the floor, while shutting down the idea of starting Keon Ellis. He shut down that question once from Kyle Matson, and it came back up again. And I guess it came up, Matt, you know this better than we do. It came back up in maybe a pregame media session. It must have been the Lakers game, because I know Kyle brought it up after the Bucks game, so it must have been the Lakers game that it came up a second time.
Yeah, it was brought up because Kyle asked after the Bucks game. It was brought up again pre-game, and then I asked again post-game because, and I think,
Boy, you guys really pressing his buttons.
Well, and if he reacts negatively to it, that's fine. But I'm going off of the
Which he didn't.
consistency of what Mike Brown has been asking for. You say searching. Mike Brown has been searching for this defensive effort and intensity
you're right.
for the last 2 seasons.
Yep.
And Keon Ellis
You're
is
right.
the one that's finally given it to him. Kevin Herter has not. So I get searching with your lineup, but the basketball that you're trying to play, these last 2 games, 2-game sample size, totally understand. But these last 2 games have shown you that in back-to-back games, which the Kings have not been able to do at any point this season, in back-to-back games, you got what you were looking for. And a large part of that was a former two-way player, which kind of full context here. If you were to tell me at the beginning of the season that in March, I'd be lobbying for the Kings to start Keon Ellis over Kevin Herter and the Kings were in a playoff race, I'd have called you crazy. But here we are. And that's credit to Keon and his story and how hard he's worked to get to this point. That being said, what Mike has been asking for and talking about and wanting all season long since training camp, Keon Ellis is consistently giving to him. And when Keon Ellis has been starting, it's not just Keon doing it, but the rest of the team, I think, has been following suit. I think the way Keon plays also impacts the players that are around him, at least with how the Sacramento Kings are starting. It's not that Kevin's not a inspiring leader or anything like that. It's just what the eye test is telling us. The Kings have played more impactful physical defense consistently this season, not just over the last 2 games when Keon Ellis has started. That's one of the major reasons why they're 6-0 in those starts. You have not gotten to see what it potentially looks like to continue starting Keon Ellis, which again, I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen, but you haven't gotten the chance to see what that looks like with Monk and with Herter and still Davion Mitchell, a defensive first guard coming off the bench with that second unit. Some things like Mike is stubborn with certain things and I love him for it, but like I'm refusing to start Malik Monk because Malik Monk is this impactful 6th man of the year. Perfect. Love it, Mike. Totally understand. Like I get it. Even though we all know Malik Monk not only is capable of starting, he's the 3rd best player on this Kings team this season. And it's not even close. That being said, now that's kind of leaked into, Keon Ellis is playing really, really good as a starter. I'm going to continuously point out that he's 6-0 as a starter. He's doing the things that we want. Oh, but I don't think I want to commit to him being a starter full time because Kevin Herter has been giving us good things as well. But your actions have been telling us all season long with Kevin Herter's diminished minutes and 2 different situations where you experimented starting Chris Duarte over Kevin Herter that he hasn't been living up to your expectations. It's about winning right now. And to me, Keon Ellis is giving you the absolute best chance to win. So don't overcomplicate things. Go for it. But truthfully, the only thing that's unacceptable to me for the remainder of this season, guys, is Keon has to be playing every single night for the rest of this season. He has to be. And that's the one thing that Mike said that I'm absolutely going to hold him accountable to, because he answered Kyle Matson's question with, Keon is one of those guys where I can get him minutes at any time. I can get him in and I can put him in with any lineup and so do it. Like Keon has to be playing 15, 20 minutes a night minimum, in my opinion, for the remainder of the season because of the impact that he's made. Do I think he's going to be perfect for all those minutes? No, he's going to struggle at times. But Keon's impact is undeniable. Mike has found something here with 3-guard lineups and Keon and Davion both making an impact off the bench. Carry that into the playoffs. That's the only unacceptable thing he couldn't do or could do.
and really just last thing, we can move on, but that's the bottom line. I think too much is always made of starting and all this other stuff. Like, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter because there's a reason certain people start, but it's too much made of it. Like, at the end of the day, what's the minutes distribution looking like? Who's closing those games?
Mhm.
Everybody looks at Malik Monk. We love Malik Monk. I'm not going to speak for everybody. I don't care that he doesn't start. I love that he plays 28 minutes, and in crunch time, he's the one bringing it home or helping bringing it home with Fox and Sabonis more times than not. That's all that matters. You can have Kevin Huerter start and play 11 minutes like he did the other day. Keon play 21 and get the same type of impact. There's no – right now you're 11 games over 500. You've been playing good basketball even before these last 2 games. There's no real need to start him as long as he's in the rotation. As long as he's getting his 20 minutes a night.
Yeah.
There's no need to possibly upset the apple cart with Kevin Huerter or anything like that. Just keep doing that.
And that's what I was thinking. Matt said, you said might be overcomplicating things. He might be trying to simplify things.
Mm.
Like, rather than, like you said, maybe I might get stubborn with certain things. Maybe he understands the intricacies of the team and the personalities. And there's a certain way to go about this. And the simplest thing to do is what he acknowledged. Keon needs to play. And in a lot of cases, he probably needs to play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That's the simplest way to deal with this. It might be overcomplicating things by starting him and then figuring out, okay, what's the perfect time to get Kevin in here? How do I stagger this lineup? How do I get Keon and Davion on the floor, who have been playing really, really well together?
I think that's extremely lethal.
While also keeping De'Aaron and Domas staggered. And where does Malik fit into this? Because Malik is a scorer, but now there's another scorer potentially on the, like, there's a lot that goes into that. 60 games left, 60 games into the season, 20 games left, less than 20 games left. And you're fighting every single night, Matt, whether you play or not, for 5 and 6 here in the Western Conference standings.
Yeah, what Kenny said about the closing lineups, I'll say this, I 99% agree with. The 1% that holds me back a little bit, Kenny, is the tone that Keon and the Kings have set defensively from the jump with Keon starting versus you start Kevin Huerter, you get punched in the mouth again right out of the gate, and now Keon comes in with Malik, and you're asking your bench to kind of bail you out a little bit. The Kings don't have to be down 10 points necessarily in that case, but if Dame or Jalen or D'Angelo Russell or the guard, for example, who Kevin Huerter is now on instead of Keon Ellis, if that guard gets going or that player gets going, or you have a situation like the Bulls game where Kobe White doesn't have to do any of the scoring in the first quarter because I always mispronounce his last name. Dosunmu, is that how you pronounce his name?
I always forget to. I just sent the guy out of Illinois.
Yeah, him. Because he went right at Kevin Huerter and scored like 12 points in the first quarter. Kobe White didn't have to do any of the scoring and then dropped 30 for the remainder of the game, or 37 for the remainder of the game. Part of that is because whoever Kevin is guarding, they're trying to get that player involved. They're trying to get that player to attack. So if that's Dame or that's Russell or that's Jalen Brunson tomorrow, and Jalen gets going, and then you're bringing Keon in off the bench to, like, okay, now you slow him down, but he's already got a rhythm going. Now you're hurting yourself versus why not start the gate? Why not start the game and put Keon on him and make him work right away? It doesn't mean he's not going to score, but 2 really, really lethal offensive guards shut down in back-to-back nights because of Keon, and it started from the very beginning. It wasn't a third or fourth quarter thing.
The Kings were up 14 and gave up 22 points after the first quarter against the Bulls. The slow start. Like, I'm looking for the slow start. The only one is the Lakers and the Denver one before. I'm looking for this slow start that the starting lineup gives this team.
I'm talking defensively.
They gave us 22 points against Chicago in the first quarter.
I understand, and half of those points were from the guy that Kevin Huerter was guarding.
All right, they gave him 22. Is it Huerter or is it the team? They gave him 22 points in the first quarter. They were up 14 at the end of one quarter.
All right.
They were tied the other night against the Lakers.
So let's try this before Matt just storms out and leaves.
Matt's gonna punch me when he sees
Probably.
me. He's gonna punch
I
me.
firmly believe that. And as long as it's filmed, then it's fine.
I break my wrist on his jaw.
Trey Lyles and Sasha Vezenkov did not practice today. Lyles did come out following practice wearing a sleeve on his leg and put up flat-footed shots. That's according to our man, Sean Cunningham. We have spent 30-plus minutes talking about Keon Ellis and defense. Matt, it's all fun. It's great. Boy, it sure feels like this team wins basketball games when the three drops. We could talk about starting, and we could talk about Kevin Hurt. We could talk about all this all day because it's fun. But they hit, what was it, 17 threes? And what was the other one? 19 and 17?
Against the late, maybe 19 against the Bucks.
Let's try this. They hit a lot of threes. 14. Nope, that's the Lakers. They hit 19 against the Los Angeles Lakers, and they hit 18 against the Milwaukee Bucks. That, Matt, that feels like the difference maker for this team.
10 out of the 20 against Milwaukee off of spray threes. 11 out of 19 against the Lakers off of spray threes. That's the difference right there. Mike Brown calls it the easiest three-point shot that you can take. It's like,
can you, for those that aren't tuned into all the Mike's press conferences or aren't listening to Locked On Kings for as much as they should be, what is a spray three?
Sure. So it's a paint touch spray three is a pillar of Mike Brown's offense. There's three pillars. There's that one. There's I actually can only remember two of them. One is make a decision in half a second. So like either attack, shoot, or move the ball in half a second. That's Mike does not want the stagnant ball. So those are two of the three pillars. And for some reason, I'm not remembering the third. But paint touches and spray threes are essentially when anybody, but especially a guard, so De'Aaron or whoever, attacks the basket, touches the paint to any extent, whether it's like at the rim or just inside the free throw line, to any extent, touches the paint. That draws the defense in. You spray it out to a catch and shoot, hopefully wide open three, or at the very least, good shot on the perimeter. That is the epitome. That's like Milwaukee Bucks basketball 101, right? That's why the Bucks surrounded Giannis Antetokounmpo with shooters. Giannis attacks the basket, touches the paint. He either finishes because he's a freak of nature at the rim, or he kicks out to Brook Lopez or whoever's there, and they're knocking down threes. So it's a very basic, fundamental way of playing basketball with the importance of three-pointers nowadays, but it's so impossible to stop when you have players like De'Aaron Fox, who you have to throw two or three guys at to help because he's so quick and he can blow by anybody on the perimeter. So that is a paint touch three. You touch the paint and you kick it out to what Mike calls the easiest shot in basketball, which is like you're playing horse or like you see in warmups, you're catching the ball, you're set, and you shoot. It's the easiest shot that you could have. So why not try and create as many of those as possible? And Mike has been very, very vocal about since the All-Star break. Kenny, even though the Kings have been playing better basketball, and I agree with you, since the All-Star break, Mike has pointed out that the Kings, whose goal is to have 20 spray three attempts a game, they were averaging 11. He pointed that out to us after the Rockets game. Since then, 20 and 19. And in both of those games, the Kings shot 50% or over 50% from three-point range on those spray threes, which kind of changed my viewpoint on something, D'Lo. And actually, I'm curious both of your guys' opinion on this. I felt at times that the Kings have been over-reliant on the three-point shot. Recently, since the All-Star break, their three-point totals have been down. They've been more in the 30s than they've been in the 40s. In fact, these two games where they've eclipsed 40 back-to-back, I think it's the first time since the All-Star break that they've eclipsed 40 multiple games in a row. The reason why that number was going down because the spray three attempts were going down, not because they were less reliant on the three-point shot, is because they weren't generating as many good three-point looks as Mike is wanting to generate. So that's a major difference in the offense to me over these past two games is that the three-point shooting percentage is up, and the Kings are making shots because they're generating better shots than just a typical pull-up in transition, or even think about like a dribble handoff three between Domantas Sabonis and Kevin Huerter. That's not a bad shot. The Kings love to try and create that shot, but you should have 10 or 15 of those a game to 20 spray three-point attempts. There's 35 right there, and there's a good chance you're knocking down 40+% of those as a team.
It's essential for this team.
Yeah, especially with De'Aaron.
Yeah,
because De'Aaron is so lethal,
and just a 3-ball in general.
Mhm.
I mean, that's I understand everything Mike Brown says, and I teach when I teach my kids defense first. Defense is where you're going to win. Defense is where you're always going to give yourself an opportunity. But sometimes you just got to look at that personnel, and you can say, that's not how we're going to win games. We're going to win games if we're hitting 15 plus threes. So you better get them up. And that's just what it is with this team. They're hitting the 3-ball. If they're scoring in the 115, 120 vicinity, they're one of the best teams in basketball. But if they're not, they don't really have a changeup. Like I don't think they can grind out a game. I don't think that's how this team is built.
So, not to interrupt, but to a question Matt just asked about being reliant on the 3, like that's always kind of a frustration I've had, especially when they get down. It feels like it slows down their pace, and they just they try to get back into the game with a couple of quick possessions. And if it doesn't go their way, it goes the other way, and it can kind of get ugly. And I think that's why sometimes we've seen leads disappear and different things like that. But as Kenny was talking, I was looking at I just have March pulled up in front of me. We look at small sample sizes of the season, both, positively and negatively. But in the 5 wins this month, 124, 130, 131, 129, and 120. Those were their point totals. Only in 3 of those games did they hit your marker of 15. 2 of them they didn't. The T-Wolves game, they scored 124, didn't hit that marker. As a matter of fact, they fell well short of it. They hit 11 threes in that game. The other one, I believe, was the first Laker game. Yeah, it was the first Laker game where they hit 12. To what Matt was talking about a second ago, and I think to what you were talking about, the way that they've played since the All-Star break, they've been making an effort. We've saw 70-plus paint points twice, or at least twice that I last checked this month. And yeah, that Laker game was not a point in the paint.
The first one was.
The first one was. Yeah, second
like
one wasn't.
72 points.
Yeah, second wasn't. Yeah, I think it was 76 if I remember correctly, and I don't have to remember correctly. I can just look. Yeah, 76-50. But to your point, Matt, it feels like they've tried to go away from that a little bit while focusing on what Mike wants. And if it's there, you say make that split-second decision. A lot of times that split-second decision, or at least recently, has been finishing at the basket.
We brought up simplifying things earlier, and I think Mike has done an excellent job of that over these 2 games. And that might be what it is to get through to this team, at least into the playoffs, when you can play a team best of 7 times and afford to kind of play a little more chess. The Kings have simplified things back on the offensive end. Hey, get back to a fundamental way to play basketball that we should be able to exploit with our quick guards and our 3-point shooters, which is the spray threes. The Kings have gotten back to that. And then on the defensive end, and Kenny, I know that you probably were very happy to hear Mike talk about this, the high fives on closeouts. Like that is a fundamental defensive way of defending the 3 that you learn in high school or younger, right? How to effectively close out. Doug Christie talks a lot about when you close out on a shooter, you go to their side. You don't go right into them because it's going to be a foul. But it's like if I and Kenny and I were to walk by each other right now, going different directions, and we meet in the middle and high five each other as we walk by. Like that's the effective way to essentially close out on a shooter. You don't want to make actual contact with the shooting hand. Again, that's a foul, but you want to essentially meet them at the top of their shot and act like essentially you're going to high five them. That is the best way to contest. And the Kings have done an excellent job of that over the past 2 games, and Mike Brown has made sure to point that out. So you went back to a fundamental way to play offense and a fundamental way to defend the 3-point shot, which has been so bad for the Kings that Mike Brown pointed out a couple weeks ago. If the Kings were just league average at defending the 3, they'd be a top 10 defense in the league. Their 3-point defense is so bad that it's dragging the Kings from top 10 to in the 20s and in the bottom half of the league where they have consistently been. So he simplified things. And for 2 games, the Kings have responded well. Mike pointed out a number that I never even considered before the Laker game that blew my mind. That was the Kings are 6-0 in the 6 games that they've held their opponents under 100 points. No surprise. The Kings should always win when they hold their team under triple digits. But in the game after that, they're giving up an average of 116 points. So they've not been able to do that 2 games in a row, let alone consistently. So the other night, they hold the Lakers to 107. That's a 9-point improvement on their average. And lo and behold, they win both of those games. So he's gotten the team to buy in, simplify things, and figure it out for 2 games. What does that look like on Saturday against the Knicks? More specifically, more importantly, what does that look like against the Grizzlies? What does that look like against the Raptors? And what does that look like against the Wizards? The 3 games that you play after that, 3 games that the Kings, if they play like they did over the last couple of nights, they're winning those games and hopefully taking a 4th quarter off. But we know this team. Are they going to show up and do that? That's the
funny part is they know.
Yeah.
They all brought it up after the win against the Lakers. Yeah, no, we know. We know. We get up for these games. Okay, all right. Well, they got the Draymond Green syndrome. It's hard to get up for them sorry MFers. All right, we'll get up for the Grizzlies.
Well, look, I'm gonna check with Matt right now. We're gonna check pretty much every week till the season is over. 1 to 10, 10 being your maximum level of confidence. Where are you with whether or not this team finishes in the top 6? I'm at a 9, an 8 or a 9.
I'm beating the Lakers.
We'll say 8. We'll say 8. I'm at an 8. They'll finish in the top 6. Where you at, Matt?
Number that I had in my head before you said that was 8. And I don't think I've ever drifted below a 6. I think I said that last time or something similar to that last time when I was with you guys last week. There has not been I've never imagined or allowed myself to think this Kings team is going to be a play-in team. I always thought they'd finish top 6 because I think they're a top 6 team talent-wise in the Western Conference. I think they're better than all these teams that are underneath them, and rightfully so. They're better than Dallas. They're clearly better than the Lakers. They're better than the Warriors, and they're better than the Phoenix Suns. I think that stands true. So I've always been 6 minimum, usually 7, 8, with the Kings are actually going to make the playoffs, and now it's hopefully they'll continue to prove me right.
Good stuff, man. This one tomorrow could be ugly. Not ugly like it could go like bad for the
physical game.
Yeah. Like it just could be ugly.
Yeah.
Which would New York would absolutely invite.
Yeah.
That is absolutely what they want. Like
Kings need to get up and down the floor.
Yep. Yeah. Pull them into their pace.
Because Houston made it ugly.
Set the pace. Do that.
Houston made it ugly. And that didn't work out for the Kings.
Yep.
Yeah. It's not their game.
I'll sneak 2 things in here before we wrap up. The first one is not to reopen the can of worms, KC, but if the Kings start Kevin Huerter and they get punched in the mouth to start this game, you best believe the noise is going to get even louder for Keon Ellis, and I'll be the leader.
I can almost guarantee you it's not going to happen because it rarely ever happens.
Well,
I don't even know why we're talking about it.
I hope you're right.
Because it don't happen.
I hope you're right. Second off, it's a shame that we just did this entire segment after Domantas Sabonis just made Anthony Davis his little brother again, and we didn't even talk about Domas. So I know you guys got to, brother. You guys got to go, but I want to point this out too because I think this is important for the month of March as well. Casey, you mentioned the Kings are playing better basketball. This is Domantas Sabonis' month of March. 21 points, 18 points, 16 points, 31, 25, 22, and then 17 in a triple-double the other night. Domas is scoring the basketball. I don't know if he's heard those comments of people saying, man, you're paying a center that much a year. He can't be a go-to scorer. But Domas is scoring the basketball.
You didn't say that. But you had comments about one
of
the shoes.
Did you see this, dude?
I thought he was going to say
he points at me like it was him.
Yeah, no, you guys got to stop doing Dame like this. This is wrong. This is wrong. No.
He said, hey, let's get this guy out of here.
You weren't even here that day. This is nonsense.
The way they have rewritten the book about you, bro.
Boy, hey, and you know what that shows me, Matt, is he's capable of scoring. And has his efficiency dropped?
No,
that was the whole point. Look at this guy. Man, what a turncoat. What a just throw me through the barbershop window.
Let the record show, too.
I had to defend his honor.
Let the record show. I wasn't throwing shade at D'Lo. I had no idea that was even a thing. I was just talking about the people that have commented on Domas' ability as a scorer.
He didn't say that.
No, my thing was he's capable of scoring more. Why not do it? And he's never and I think the main crux was he's never going to play outside himself. Yeah. It's not like, oh, you want me to score more? Okay, I'm going to start jacking up top of the key threes. No, he's not. He's going to he's Triple H in the early 2000s. He's the cerebral assassin. Like he will be aware of what he's doing on the floor.
And to Damian's point, he's been right.
Thank you.
He's been right.
Yeah,
Shot a little bit more, buckets, getting more buckets. It's helped the team.
Yeah, D-Law, to even better than maybe the point totals too, to your point. 14 shots, 19 shots, 13 shots, 19 shots, 11 shots, 14 shots, and then just 10 against the Lakers. But not only is he...
I asked for was like 15 or 16 because I think he was averaging
13.
Maybe 13.
But he's trying. He's trying to score.
He's capable. Like that's the thing. Like maybe he's not that scorer. He's a capable scorer, especially because he's going to make the right basketball decision seemingly every time, with one exception when he had 9 turnovers. But that's an exception. Matt, man, thanks so much for rescheduling and join us on this Friday. And I don't know how much longer we can go, so we're gonna let you get to work and go be a dad and do all of your stuff, man. But we really appreciate you. Thank you, my man.
Appreciate you, D-Lo. KC, kick rocks.